Welcome, everybody. We are back. We are in the crypt, and we are here for another amazing interview. And I'm excited to do this one because, as you guys know, there's a couple topics I really love talking about, and one of them is true crime. Is definitely one of them, as you guys well know. And the guest I have on is I've had him on before, guys, and I'm really excited to get him back on. We're going to be doing kind of an update video this time. We're going to be talking about cases that I'm very passionate about, as you guys know. So we're going to be talking and getting an update on the Zodiac case, on the David Crowley case, and on the Cooper case. So this is going to be a great show covering lots of topics, and I'm really excited to see what my guest has found out and where their research is taking them. And that way we can give you guys an update too, because I'm curious too to find out what's going on, because these cases, as you guys know, are always changing. They're always evolving. There's more information people are finding. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys. Feels great to be back on video. I've been concentrating on radio for the last couple months. I was working on a presentation for the Funnel 2 conference, so I was learning that. That took a lot of my time, so it feels great to be back here on YouTube talking to you guys on video. So let's go ahead and get my guest on here, and we're going to get this show going here. Welcome, Ross. I'm so excited to have you. Ross from Planet X Filmworks. I've had you on before. It was a great interview. Lots of great information. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great, man. Glad to be back.
Oh, definitely. So I'm so excited to get some updates from you. I know I chat with you off air a lot, and you're really big into these cases. So, I mean, I've learned so much from your channel. I'm going to make sure I leave a link in that, Ross, for you in the bottom in the description. Please, guys, check out Ross's channel if you're looking into these cases. He's the guy to go and look at. I'm telling you. So I'm excited. Let's start off where I want to start. Let's go Zodiac. Can you give people a little? Maybe there's somebody, Ross, that has not even heard of the Zodiac. I mean, so Can you give them a little bit of an update, the research you're doing, and let's just dive into what you found out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the best way to get up on my personal research is my series, The Zodiac Files, which is on my channel. As Rick just said, youtube.com/planetxfilm. If you've literally never heard of this case, so the Zodiac is an unsolved American serial killer mystery. Took place in Northern California from late 1968 to 1969. That's when the actual canonical murder crimes took place, all of which are unsolved. And then the Zodiac was obsessed with his own ego and his relationship with the media hype, so he was writing letters, much like Jack the Ripper. I think we made this comparison last time. They call Zodiac the American Jack the Ripper. However, Zodiac is much more complicated because in addition to writing letters to the media and taunting the police, he wrote 3-part ciphers, 2 of which remain unbroken to this day, one of which was cracked by a computer science team a few years ago. David Aranchak and the boys and his team, they were featured in the History Channel show Hunting for the Zodiac. There's so many crazy things that happened with it. It's difficult to where you want to jump in, but as Rick and I were talking about last time, during one of these crimes, so 2 of his victims survived. One of which, Michael Majou, was shot several times in the face and shot several times at nighttime with a flashlight in his face, so you can't really get a great description from him. The other attack, which occurred during the daylight, September 27th, 1969, Zodiac was wearing a handmade executioner's hood with a bib with his infamous cross circle logo on his chest.
Yeah, that's what everybody knows. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that picture.
Yeah, so if you've seen the Robert Graysmith picture that Rick and I were talking about last time, Graysmith was actually a cartoonist who worked at the Chronicle. He was there when some of the letters came in. All of this is, basically reimagined in Dave Fincher's film Zodiac, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Robert Downey Jr. Granted, Graysmith and Paul Avery didn't know each other and they're best friends in the movie, so that's another thing. We covered that in some of the videos on my channel. But other than that, as far as the look of the time and what they're wearing, what the victims are wearing, the reconstructions of the murder scenes, all of that is pretty highly accurate in the film. As Rick and I covered last time, my series actually focuses on what's known as the Zodiac pre-crimes or non-canonicals, which are very, 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 very similar crimes to the four canonical crimes in Northern California. However, they take place in Southern California. So that's everywhere from San Diego to Oceanside to Riverside. And that one is slightly mentioned in the film. That's 1996. What I call the Sherry Joe Bates mystery, Sherry Josephine Bates. That one's interesting, right, Rick? Because
that is interesting. It is.
People are really 50-50 on that one. They really say, like, Zodiac definitely did it. There was a confession letter, and other people are like, does it make sense for this like 40-year-old like overweight man to be in this library with all these like college kids? So the best way you can find out about that one, if Rick can link it in, Zodiac Files episode 3, the Sherry Joe Bates mystery. That's my most recent episode, and I feel that it's the most comprehensive deep dive into the Riverside activity case. Quite frankly, I'm a bit surprised at some of you internet people because of all the things that I corrected in that episode, such as Wing Walker boots not being found at the scene of the crime, the desktop poem actually being a desk bottom poem, and Sherry being sliced 42 times or 44 times, whatever it is you people keep repeating. All of that is totally inaccurate, and all those inaccuracies are outlined in my video. I really thought deep down in my soul, Rick, when I drop this, it's going to totally correct the record, and everyone's going to get this one right now. And then people are still continuing to like just repeat those misnomers over and over again.
Wow, yeah.
Drives me insane. I really thought that I nailed it out of the park, and it's quite funny. It's like, I don't know if you people just haven't seen my video or what, but whatever else Rick has, if you want to just jump in on, the canonicals or anything else on Zodiac, I will give you what I got.
Well, it's crazy. Like it's really surprising, like you said, that people haven't. I hope they check out your videos because they're amazing, and they're really gonna like answer a lot of questions I think that people are gonna have, like because it's really interesting. Like when I find it fascinating when you break those down because it makes you just wonder, is it really something going on there? Like was it him or her? I mean, it's really interesting, and so I hope people do check it out. Now, like Zodiac's been going on for so long. Like, and anytime I can watch a video on it or a documentary or anything, I'm always hungry to get new information. Like, are they moving forward on this case at all, Ross? Like, are they kind of at a stalemate or what?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Where is law enforcement at on the Zodiac case? Because they couldn't, with the powers of the CIA, the FBI, the military, law enforcement, they couldn't crack his 3 ciphers back in '69. Then much, I think it was 2018 when David Aranchak cracked I don't know if I mentioned his channel, but I'll send you some of his videos. Definitely check out David's series. It's Let's Crack the Zodiac, and he does a lot more. He's considered the cipher expert. He does a lot with the ciphers and other references to Zodiac and pop culture and vice versa. Essentially, you have Zodiac making all these movie references, comic book references, things of that nature. And then as far as art imitating life later on, you have all these movies influenced by the Zodiac, such as the Riddler character in the recent Batman movie. He writes ciphers, and he writes that My Secret Friend card, which is like Zodiac's secret pal card from the real case. So it's quite interesting, you know what I mean? You have this lunatic monster who's obsessed with comic books and movies, and then later on it's like those movies start obsessing over him. And like you said, it's a 50-year-old case, yet you just had a movie that dropped last year, right? With a character based on Zodiac. Yep. So in a sense, he's still with us, which is what he always wanted, because he's obsessed with his own ego and the media hype. Now, where are they at on the Zodiac case? Well, it's interesting, right? Because it's this unsolved cold case. As Rick probably knows, being a interest in true crime, there's no statute expiration in the United States on murder.
Yeah.
So if I committed a murder 100 years ago, I'm still guilty for it now. It's not like it just goes away or they throw it away or any of those things. One thing that really drives me nuts about that is like the Sherry Joe Bates cold case, because I don't know how much we went into it last time, but yeah, people think there's been a lot of mistakes in that case and just weird things that have happened. I think I did for some of them last time with you. But Yeah, I mean, it is an open case. It'd be difficult to say, you know, are they actively, investigating it? We don't really know. I think if they have anything that's like a smoking gun, well, let me preface by saying this.
Okay.
There's a lot of, not everything law enforcement has is publicly released on Zodiac. So it's safe to say they have quite a bit of material that we just don't know. Whether that's evidence at crime scenes, whether that's other things, maybe letters. It's been theorized and hypothesized. There's quite a few things that aren't public to the general public that we just don't know. So it's difficult. We'd have to kind of speculate where they're at in their investigation. It is open. I think the FBI has made a couple statements on it, like it's an open cold case, but not one that they're actively investigating. I could tell you flat out with D.B. Cooper, the FBI a few years back said that they're done with it. They even made a statement to people who researched the case. I think it was the scientist Tom Kay who came out with the particles on the tie breakthrough, that even if they had Cooper, if they had a confession, if they had him dead to rights, he'd be like a 90-year-old man, and they simply weren't going to waste resources on prosecuting him. Granted, what's the difference between Zodiac and Cooper? Zodiac murdered a bunch of people.
Exactly.
Cooper was just some guy that jumped out of a plane with a parachute. So with Cooper, they weren't even going to do it. With Zodiac, you'd think if they had something, I guess the big question about it would be DNA. Where are we at on Zodiac's DNA?
I was just going to ask you that. I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, so it's weird, Rick, because, he writes all these letters, he licks all these stamps, and he sends them the letters. So they have a few things. Now, at Lake Berryessa, Rick probably knows a lot of the movie, he was wearing gloves. So they do have that rope. They do have everything that was at, the blanket that Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were laying on. But the problem is when they rescued Brian, I think it's Dennis Land, the park ranger. Mm-hmm. He comes and takes the blanket and moves it. So he actually moved the murder scene. A lot of the crime scene. A lot of people have a big problem with that. You know what I mean? So this is Zodiac, right? It's this constant bullcrap with Zodiac, right, Rick? It's like, okay, you have the stuff from the crime scene, but it was moved, and you have a bunch of other people touching it, much like those Zodiac letters. So
right, yeah.
A couple years back, there was an announcement that this is what they say. They say they've extracted a partial DNA profile of Zodiac, and essentially what that means is they can negate suspects with it, but I don't know if they can actually 100% match someone copy for copy. You know what I'm saying? So people who have a suspect like Arthur Lee Allen, Robert Graysmith's suspect from the yellow cover book Zodiac, I'm sorry, guys, but Allen wasn't a match on fingerprints. And I believe the other thing they have on Zodiac is what they call a palm print. It's like, when you take a pen and you rest your hand on the piece of paper.
Yep.
Yeah, so they kind of have that from when he was writing. So they have that partial palm print thingy. I'm not a forensic expert, sorry, guys. And they have the partial Zodiac, the partial DNA profile. So that's the problem. A lot of the mainstream suspects have been shot down because of that. Now, a couple years back, they tell us that they've lifted DNA from the stamp, and then they come back and tell us that it's someone that couldn't be Zodiac. So what does couldn't be Zodiac mean? Well, for one, it was from the front of the stamp, not the back, which is where someone would have licked it back.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just thinking that.
And I think we discussed this last time, but, they said certain populations of people back then, late 60s, let's say you were in a corporate environment, like you were someone who dealt with a lot of mailing letters at your job, like you were some kind of like mailroom person or something like that. They had like these little like water things with a sponge where they dip the sponge in the water just so you don't have to lick like 5,000 envelopes a day because that'd be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So some people have used that explanation like, well, how do we even know Zodiac licked the stamp? He could have just used the water, and we don't know, right? It's all speculation. But what they come back with is that it was someone who could not have been the Zodiac. So earlier on I was speaking about people who saw Zodiac.
Yep.
Hartnell saw him under the mask. Majot saw him at night with a flashlight in his face. But we didn't talk about the Robbins kids and Officer Falk, who I'm actually going up here very soon. I'm going to try to maybe do a little vlog for you guys or something.
Cool.
But I'm headed up to Washington Street and Cherry, where Paul Stine was shot. I believe that's October 7th, or I think it's October 8th, 1969. That is the last known canonical crime of the Zodiac, downtown San Francisco, the Presidio, right outside the Presidio Park. So he takes the taxi ride. You know this movie scene, Rick, I'm assuming. He takes the taxi ride with Stine, shoots him in the back of the head. He has the weird cloth in his hand. He gets out. The Robbins kids see him from the window across the street, wiping down the cab. He bounces out. Falk comes flying up with his partner, pulls up to him, questions him. Unfortunately, I don't know if I went into this last time, it went out on the police radio that it was a black male, which it obviously wasn't. No one really knows where that came from. It's the late 60s. Possible racism. You guys can speculate.
Yeah, that's really weird, how that went out. I always found that weird.
That blew the entire case, because if you would have had a white male with horn-rimmed glasses and a widow's peak, you would have stopped him right then and there. And 5 minutes after he killed Paul Stine, he would have got him, and none of us would be here now. So, it'd be more like a David Berkowitz, Son of Sam thing where they actually got the guy. So Falk sees him. Some people have problems with Falk's description because he changes his story a couple times. It kind of got swept under the rug. Falk doesn't really, you can see his rendition of the story in his name was, this is the Zodiac speaking documentary. It's on Tom's Void channel. And I think the documentary his name was Arthur Lee Allen. So those were the interviews with all the detectives and the police guys and stuff like that. And Falk is on there. He gives his story. People have said that he's wavered in his renditions of the story. So Falk sees him face to face, questions him. Have you seen anybody suspicious? He says, yeah, I saw a guy waving a gun that way. He ran off, so they take off trying to catch the guy. Little did they know, they probably just questioned the guy and let him walk free. Once he gets into Presidio, I was just looking at the Presidio on Google Maps. It's freaking huge, man. So are you really going to be able to go in there at night on a foggy San Francisco night, be able to find one guy that probably is like thousands of miles away by then?
Right,
who knows? That's the whole thing. So when they say that they got DNA from someone who couldn't have been the Zodiac, well, then we're all assuming that it means it couldn't have been from an adult white male. So it could have been from like someone who's a non-white, non-Caucasian person, in which case it's probably not the Zodiac, probably just somebody who handled the letter like at the mail, the post office or wherever, the office where the letters landed, because they went to the Chronicle and they went to different places. Or maybe like a child or something like that. I don't even know if you can analyze that by DNA. Again, guys, I'm not a scientist, so excuse me. But that's pretty much where they at. They come out a couple of years ago, say they have a DNA sample, and then they announce that it was someone who could not have been the Zodiac. So
very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I got a question, and this is something I wanted to ask you, and I don't think I asked you this in the last time I had you on. So I'm glad that I kind of thought of this now. Mm-hmm. What I find weird, Ross, about this case is that after all of these years, has anyone come forward? I can't find anything where anyone's ever come forward claiming they were Zodiac, knew the Zodiac, because usually with time in a case, somebody along the way starts talking or something, like something gets revealed. And I find with a few of the cases I'm looking into, which are cases we're going to be talking about in this interview with the David Crowley case, I find this really weird that nobody's talking and nobody's ever. I just want your thoughts on that. To me, I find it weird. So I just want your thoughts.
My biggest problem is, so I have a research team now that's actually helping me with the series, so I have access to basically all the articles and a bunch of other things, and I do know quite a few things about the case now that I can't say publicly because I've been sworn to secrecy. There are people who have claimed to be the Zodiac. There are tons of people who have claimed to know the Zodiac. every single one of them has been an idiot and has had absolutely no proof. I mean, dude, there's been 900 deathbed confessions of DB Cooper. You know,
that's true. Yeah,
that one's kind of cool, right? He's this badass folk hero that got away with 200K, and you know, everybody respects that guy. Who wants to go around claiming they were the Zodiac because he's a piece of crap? Now, there's been mentally unstable people that have done it. Well, I mean, I guess the earliest one that you would go to is, and I know you had Drew Beeson on your channel.
Yep,
is
great
Don
interview.
Cheney. Do you remember when they talked to Don Cheney in the movie? He's kind of the first guy that comes forward and brings forth Arthur Lee Allen. But then, under scrutiny, Arthur Lee Allen falls apart rather quickly. And then you start looking at Don Cheney, like, why did he bring this guy forward? And then you start to see that the suspect profile of Don Cheney matches to what the Zodiac was way better than Arthur Lee Allen does.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So
yep.
I think you did you get to read Sighting In on the Zodiac?
Yes, yes.
So that was interesting to me, because when Drew was my second guest on my interview series, and I found him through his Zodcast. Everybody go subscribe to the Drew Beeson channel on YouTube. He knows every case, dude. That guy's a true crime genius. But you know, that was kind of, Don Cheney was interesting for me because he was the first newer suspect that I had heard of. Granted, he interjects himself in the Zodiac case. So I guess what you would come to is, where do you place the Zodiac? Do you place him as a lone person that would never speak of this to anyone, a la like a DB Cooper? Or would you put him as, like, his ego is so big, he's like a Don Cheney, and he's going to try to interject himself into the case, assuming that he's going to outsmart law enforcement and they're never going to figure out that he interjected himself in the case? That's the issue with Don Cheney. Like, if it's somebody who is involved in the case, well, then the Zodiac is Don Cheney. My whole thing is, like, I can't picture the Zodiac going on Zodiac documentaries and talking about himself pretending not to be the Zodiac. Like, that'd be insane to me.
Yep.
If Don Cheney pulled that off, then he's a master criminal. You know what I mean? And maybe he did. Like, I'm saying he's probably one of the strongest suspects. It's just, my whole thing is, what I'm going to interject is what my Zodiac theory is, and I don't know how deep I went into it in the last show, but personally, I think he's a cult member. If he was a member of, like, the Church of Satan or the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which were the massive, occultism and Satanism, they saw this massive rise in the 60s, especially in Northern California. You know, if he's like a member of the Church of Satan, but what people forget is, with the Antoine LaVey vein of Satanism, it's not worship of Satan, it's worship of self. So when I read Zodiac's writings, what I see is self-worship. Maybe he's conscious of all these other occultic demonic entities such as Lucifer and Baphomet and these other demons that these satanic sects worship. But Zodiac's ego is massive. Maybe Zodiac worships himself on a higher level than he worships Satan. So when you hear that Aleister Crowley, do what thou wilt, and Zodiac says, I'm collecting slaves for the afterlife, and if you kill me, I'll just go to paradise, and everybody I've murdered will be my slave in paradise. It sounds very much like self-worship to me.
Oh, you know, for sure, yeah.
So that's my personal theory. I don't push it overly hard, and I do have a person of interest. We can get into that later if you care to hear. You know,
I would love to hear it, actually.
Yeah. So I'm kind of on that level of newer suspects now. Where else are, you asked me about people claiming to be Zodiac or people claiming they knew the Zodiac. Yep. Well, you have that first one, which is Don Cheney, which is what started all the Arthur Lee Allen bullshit.
Yep.
Most recently, okay, let's talk about the case breakers real quick, because these guys are idiots. Me and Eric Eulis roasted them on my recent DB Cooper episode. Go check that guys out. Cooper Chronicles Volume 2 with Eric Eulis. This guy, Thomas Colbert, I don't want to crap on him too hard because he did do some good things for the DB Cooper case. He got the FOIA request into the FBI, and that's what released all the 302 files, which are what FBI files are in the DB Cooper case. Other than that, those guys have done some ridiculous bull crap, and even though their DB Cooper suspect wasn't really good, I don't know if you caught the DB Cooper Where Are You documentary on Netflix.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So Rackstraw was down here in San Diego where I'm at. He's passed away since. And they were pulling up on this guy at his boat every day, harassing him after he said, like, dude, I'm not DB Cooper, leave me alone. For one, that was ridiculous. They kind of harassed that guy. I wish I had known about Rackstraw, because I swear to God I would have got him on my YouTube channel, and I would have been like, dude, just tell us you're not DB Cooper and shut this whole case breaker bullcrap down. You know what I mean? That's what I would have did with Rackstraw. I wouldn't have harassed him about DB Cooper. That's insane. But they have an even worse suspect in another case, which is the case we're talking about right now, the Zodiac case. The case breakers, you guys are the worst, came out with this suspect, Gary Francis Post, who is absolutely terrible. Their reasoning for Gary Post being Zodiac was he had wrinkles on his forehead, which matched the composite sketch. The Zodiac deposit sketch doesn't really have wrinkles on its forehead. I mean, I think the artist just added that for, like, realism, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You can't base a case on that. That's insane and ridiculous. And also, they hit us with the old, we know where Zodiac's guns are. They're buried in I think it was the Sierra Nevada mountains, but none of us in the case breakers are supposed to be these FBI agents and retired police people and lawyers and attorneys and all these credentialed geniuses. Their reasoning was, we can't climb up the mountain where the guns are because we're all in our 50s and we're too out of shape to go get there. So you mean to tell me you have Zodiac's guns, but you won't hire someone to go get them? First of all, I'm 37. I'll go up there right now for free.
I know you would.
Right there by myself for free with my camera, with all my equipment, if you guys could send me the GPS of where the guns are. I'm pretty confident it's not going to happen because you guys' excuses are nonsense. So,
and you would go too. You really would.
I'll go right now. I'll leave the Rick interview right now. I'll go get the guns. I'll come back and we'll complete the interview. Rick knows me. So that one was stupid. And then I'm just trying to give you the new suspects because you asked me that question. And
I'm loving it. Very
honestly,
interested.
The best one I've heard probably is Drew Beeson's, because when I was doing my suspect research, like I hadn't heard Drew's angle when I encountered Drew, and me and him are cool now. We do a lot of shows and whatnot. But then so there was Gary Francis Post, sucks. There's this new guy, Jack Dewar. This one came out I think this week or last week. I'm just Googling it real quick because I think this suspect's trash too. Zodiac killer. But this guy popped up. Recently. What the hell is his name? The last one Tom Voight had was Richard Gaikowski. I think I talked about him when you interviewed me last.
Yeah, you brought him up. Yep.
So this was Gloria Dewar, and I think this guy's name is. No, Paul Dewar. Paul Dewar. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, quite frankly. So this guy came out recently. This article is September 22nd. Looks like a couple weeks ago. This guy came out. They have a picture of him dressed up like Robin Hood with a bow and arrow. And apparently this guy did archery, so we're supposed to believe that he's Zodiac. The guy's skinny.
Okay.
He doesn't even match Zodiac's description. Rick can tell you that Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell said Zodiac was like basically 5'10" to 6 feet tall.
Yep.
We did the description last interview. Go see that. He's like around 200 to 220 pounds based on the imprints of the footprints at Lake Berryessa. He's barrel chested, so he has the stomach pouch coming out over his belt. This Paul Dewar guy is this skinny little Robin Hood cosplay. This guy's out here LARPing with a bow and arrow. And okay, I guess the one thing this guy had was the handmade knife. Me and Rick talked about the handmade knife sheath last time.
Yep.
So that's the only thing I see with Paul Dewar is he can apparently do leather working and made a handmade knife. So apparently this woman, Gloria Dewar, I think was his wife or his daughter or something. She came out with this suspect a couple weeks ago. I'd give this suspect like a C-, being generous. He's probably more of a D-.
Wow.
And let me see. Gary Francis. So of the new suspects, the two best ones are Don Cheney, who isn't really new because Drew's book came out, I think, in 2018 or something. Mm-hmm. And then Michael Morford. He's been on my channel. Me and him and Black Box Ned did a review of the Zodiac film. Morph is really good. Morph is one of the probably top 3 suspects on Zodiac in the world. He does an awesome podcast with my boy Richard Grinnell, who I interviewed last in my interview series. Richard Grinnell is ZodiacCiphers.com. Morph's website, I believe, is ZodiacKiller.net. And they do the Zodiac Speaking podcast. I plugged it for him last time, but it's amazing. I'm going to do it again just because you know how I do, Rick. If you want the whole story, every detail, because the movie, for one, zooms in on a suspect that no one thinks was the Zodiac killer.
That's
and
true.
For 2, it only really focuses on it from Graysmith's perspective.
Exactly.
And a little bit of Paul Avery. I mean, Paul Avery was amazing. People have some questions about him, too. I brought those up last time. You know who I'm referring to when I say Paul Avery, Rick?
I sure do.
Yeah. So the Zodiac Speaking podcast, this will give you every little detail of all the little tangential things like the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders, which happened very close to the Zodiac activity. It could possibly be related to Zodiac. It was mostly like younger girls who were found in these ravines and thrown off the highways. It was like, like hitchhikers that were by themselves and stuff. But, even Arthur Lee Allen had a trailer in Santa Rosa. So it's kind of almost like the epicenter of Zodiac activity right along with Vallejo.
Wow.
So Morph came out with his suspect recently, which is William Andrew McDuff. He's a younger Zodiac suspect. I think he was in his 20s. He kind of has big ears. He has glasses. So, in my opinion, the only decent new suspects that have come out in recent years, Don Cheney and William Andrew McDuff. They call him Mac. So, people have a lot of questions about McDuff with him being younger and whatnot. So I'll let you take it from there.
What is your gut telling about Mac? I'm curious. Is he good? Is he the best?
Yeah. I'll tell you this, he's in the right place. He seems to have some of the right experience. I think I talked briefly with him. Morph, man, get at me, Morph. I'm trying to get Morph back on the show to do a McDuff deep dive so I can really get the goods on him. But I know Morph is planning to do a deep dive on McDuff.
That'd be amazing.
It's kind of the last epilogue episode of Zodiac Speaking, because they covered everything. Like, I love that podcast to keep going, but they have literally covered everything, and they don't want to just like regurgitate known stuff.
That makes sense. Yep.
Morph is talking about coming back on and doing kind of a William Andrew McDuff deep dive analysis on there. So I'm hoping after he does that, I can get him over on Zodiac Files interview, and I can kind of pick his brain on that. I like McDuff. I'll tell you this, he's in the right place. I totally agree with Morph's technique for locating McDuff, which is called geoprofiling. He was essentially analyzing everybody that was like a white Caucasian male that was kind of in that right location, which is the northern San Francisco Bay area, which is like Vallejo area. That's where, Zodiac makes the infamous phone call after Lake Herman Road when he kills David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. And, he goes and he makes that phone call. He's like, it was after Blue Rock Springs when he makes the phone call. But he references Lake Herman Road. He says, I also killed those 2 kids last year, which was late December, as Rick knows. Goodbye. And he does that weird goodbye that the Riddler was doing in the Batman movie. So, the way he analyzed him, as I said, was he was looking for like white Caucasian males that are kind of like the right description, age, height. I mean, people get super mad at McDuff because, supposedly Zodiac was like 35 to 40, but that's how he looked. We don't know, right?
Exactly.
And some people are doubting, some people are even doubting Falk's, description, and he supposedly saw him from the closest. But the problem is nobody ever went directly up to Zodiac in his face, as Rick was saying, and tried to size it. Hey, like, I'm about 5'10". How tall are you, Zodiac? That never happened. It was always either people sitting in cars like Falk and Majot,
right,
or uneven ground like Brian Hartnell. And Brian Hartnell's like 6'7", so he's not going to be able to tell if you're 5'6" or 5'8". You know what I mean? He's like 3 feet taller than you. You know what I mean? And that's on a hill on an island next to a lake. So how good of a description, and you know, Zodiac's wearing boots and all this other bullcrap. So how you know, you're not gonna be able to nail his height down. People have kind of an issue with Macduff's age and his big ears. I'll tell you what Macduff changed for me. I'm definitely open to a younger Zodiac now because of Suspect Macduff, and that's because Brian Hartnell said he sounded younger by his voice. Remember, Brian's the only victim who talked to him.
That's right, yes.
Talked to him back and forth. They had this conversation where Zodiac makes up this story about escaping prison and stealing their car and going to Mexico. He comes up with this ludicrous backstory for himself. Like, why would you even do that? But, you know, that's Zodiac, right? So he said Zodiac's voice sounded younger, and I believe Nancy Slover, who took that phone call we just referenced, I believe she said Zodiac sounded younger too, like 20s. So once again, Rick, this is the Zodiac case. You have people saying he looks mid-30s to mid-40s, but he sounds in his 20s. Which one do you go with? You know what I mean?
That's really interesting. Yeah, definitely keep me posted on that. I'm going to be really curious to see. I hope you can do a deep dive. Because if you can, I'm in it. I'll be watching. That's for sure. I think that'll be super interesting.
Yeah. Morph said he was down for a show, so Morph, get at me. Let's get this done. Morph does a lot of work, and he lives in Florida. They just had the hurricane down there, but I'd love to get you back, Morph. Let's do this.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I'm totally gay. I'll be watching. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
so
Morph
keep knows us, shit.
Yeah, keep us posted on that. So. That's where we're at with the Zodiac then. So I'm thank you for the update, Ross, because that's amazing. I'm happy that we can kind of keep people posted, and if there's new suspects and your thoughts on it, that's really interesting to me. So and we're moving along now. So now we're gonna go. I want to touch on, like I said, guys, this is an update. So we're updating with Ross and talking about some of the cases that we talked about when I had him on the show before. So the one big one that I've had many people on talking about is the David Crowley case, which is another one that there's definitely two sides, Ross, to this. I hear people saying that David is definitely guilty. The evidence shows it. And the other side saying there's no way David could have done it. And many times I admit I've been bouncing back and forth when I started looking at the research. I kind of, one day I thought he was guilty, and then I'd read something, look at something else, and then he wasn't. So I want to speak to somebody that who actually, you spoke with David, and you interviewed him, and you were following him when he was doing the Gray State trailer and working, giving updates on YouTube and that. I want from what you know of David and that, give me, what are your thoughts? Like, you actually talked to this man a few times, and I'm really curious. Like, what are your thoughts on this case? And then we'll start there, and then God knows where it's going to go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to say a couple things on this. So, yeah, I do bounce back and forth myself. I'm not like, overall, I'm probably like neutral on, whether David did it. I mean, before we deep dive this, let me a couple things. So this is, sorry for stepping away. That's
okay.
This is what happens to you when you're not a big true crime guy, which is what I would have referred to myself to as like 3 years ago. Not a big true crime guy. I was always into other things, more of the stuff like what Rick covers on his channel, like extraterrestrials, alternate history, forbidden history, Oak Island, UFOs, cryptozoology.
Yep.
That was always, I know you've covered all that stuff, Sasquatch and Bigfoot.
Yep.
That was always my bag. I was always way on the deep end. I'm 0 to 100. I always went all the way in. So as far as like basic true crime cases, none of it ever really got me up in, like we said last time, up until Zodiac, and I was kind of on Jack the Ripper before that. But
yeah, that's another interesting one, Jack the Ripper.
For sure, and that's why they call Zodiac the American Jack the Ripper, because of so many parallels. Well, this is where not really being a big true crime guy gets you. I probably have about 30 true crime books on my bookshelf behind me that you guys can't see. I just finished reading this last night, and this is what I want to get you into, Rick. Chaos by Tom O'Neill. This is the actual real story of the Manson Tate LaBianca murders.
Okay, I got to read that.
It's called Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. I just finished this last night. And the other one I want to get you into, Rick, is Son of Sam, the David Berkowitz, because there's some crazy stuff there. The book is The Ultimate Evil by Maury Terry, saying that there's an actual cult, and they were passing around that .44 pistol, that 4.4
right.
pistol. and David Berkowitz is the only one that gets arrested. The Carr brothers both die recently after, and everybody else gets off. Just a theory. I'm not saying either this or the.
Well, I saw the documentary on Netflix. I think
Yes.
it was, and I've watched it like 5 times. Like it's
Sons of Sam, and actually you can check out my interview with Carl Denaro, David Berkowitz victim, on my channel, which is my my Sons of Sam cult conspiracy interview series. And I had Carl Denaro on there. He worked with Maury Terry, the author of Ultimate Evil, and he also has his own book called what is this book called? It's called Why I Wasn't Shot by David Berkowitz. I think it's like Son of Sam. Anyway, Why I Wasn't Shot by David. Anyway, check those out. Anyway,
yeah, I'm going to put a link in the description for that interview. For
Absolutely.
Sure.
So, yeah, my interview with Carl is awesome. He's the man. Shout out to Carl. So anyway, I'm just prefacing by saying a few years back, I was not a big true crime guy, and now look at me. So like, it's crazy, man. So David Crowley, yeah, again, like I would say, like I'm probably like neutral on this. The reason why I brought up Chaos and Charles Manson is because, let's just say the other group, the group of idiots that constantly troll Greg and Dan and just spout moronic BS and nothing that you guys say has any grounding. They like to think that like every case is a slam dunk and law enforcement does awesome. Well, I'll tell you a bunch of cases where law enforcement didn't do that good. Zodiac, D.B. Cooper, JFK, they lost his brain. They lost a bunch of evidence. They botched JFK crazy. Kurt Cobain, they wiped the entire rifle down, and they don't even have Kurt Cobain's fingerprints on the shotgun lying right next to him.
Yep.
So how am I supposed to believe that Kurt Cobain shot himself with that shotgun when you can't even show me fingerprints on the gun lying 6 inches away from him? And I say that to say this. Same thing with David Crowley. I think points that Greg and Dan have made, on the crime scene are very good points. Apple Valley police out there in Minnesota, they're not used to those kind of murder crimes. They're very rare. For them to walk in and say, oh, well, there's a gun lying next to him and, this and that, it's definitely a murder-suicide. Well, doesn't that sound a lot like there's a shotgun lying next to Kurt Cobain, so it's definitely a suicide, and then they just rule that suicide in 24 hours, and they don't do any actual investigation while Courtney Love is banging the coroner and every single one of the officers on the police
It's so
team.
true.
Super legit police work, guys. So, I mean,
Yep.
those are just a couple things there. But, yeah, give me 1 sec.
I see that's the problem I've always had too with people saying like, well, just read the police report and that'll show you that David did it. And I'm like, okay, I'll read the police report, but as you just said, Ross, which is key, and I want to make people realize that police mess up cases all the time. Like, I mean, if you dive into that, you're going to be busy for the rest of your life.
All the time.
All the time. So
I'll just say,
yeah.
The DB Cooper, for example, 302s, you're talking about FBI agents, and, me and Eric just covered this, a deep dive. There's so many inconsistencies about his eye color, and people said this and people said that. You're talking about people that were on the plane when it happened, and they come off and get interviewed, and they can't even give the same story of you're talking about being inside a plane. You're not talking about a football stadium. So if you can't even get people to agree on those descriptions, like much like Zodiac, you have multiple composite sketches, you have multiple DB Cooper composite sketches. So, I mean, there's with them not okay. So when Greg and Dan first started doing their lives, I think it was Dan's old channel that got deleted. There was nobody in the Facebook group back then. I was the first person to come on live with them, and I was telling them about how I was a crowdfunder on what was going to be the Gray State feature film.
Right.
And this is actually a hilarious story because I thought that Gray State trailer was awesome. It's still online. You guys can Google it, Gray State concept trailer.
I like it too. Yeah.
And I was super into that. And then, Greg and Dan got those full versions of the script. Just for anybody who doesn't know my backstory and my involvement with the project, and then I'll get back into the Crowley case.
Okay.
I was a crowdfunder. I spoke to David twice. We had a little pre-dry run where him and my co-host Gaz, we talked to Dave and we just kind of, plotted out how the interview would go. Then we have the full 2-hour interview, which is on my old music channel, Planet X Records. And then, Dave and I had some back and forth emails. when me and Rick do a full Crowley case breakdown from my perspective, I don't know if you could show screenshots and stuff like that, Rick, but I have like some emails of me and Dave. I still have them. And then he gave me access to their Dropbox, which had all the Gray State music, because David actually composed that music, which is in the Gray State trailer. And my old rap group was called Guerrilla Alliance. It was me and my boy Mac. We were supposed to take some of that Gray State music and we're going to make like a hip hop track with it. So it would have been the authentic Gray State music composed by David, and we would have kind of, it didn't pan out for obvious reasons for anyone who knows how the rest of the story goes. But yeah, it was interesting. Those are just some behind the scene things that not a lot of people know, since people always like to tell me how the project went and how David was when none of you guys even talked to him, period, or did any work with him. So there's that.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad that I actually got you on here to chat with you, because I want, like, you actually talked to him.
Right,
like, you know, and you were following his work and stuff. Right. And I think that says a lot, because not a lot of people that are talking about the case, me included, I never talked to David. You know.
I mean, what I see is most people got involved years later. Like,
exactly,
yeah. You know, that other group didn't pop up for years later, and it's just a Greg and Dan, you know, fan club. So the official group is Justice for David Crowley and Family. If you guys are on Facebook, go over there, and you know what I mean. Greg and Dan, Sophia, Catherine, they all have really good information on there. Greg has his book. I think you can download Greg's book on his website. I don't know if it's free or.
It's still free. Yep.
Yeah, he's got hard copies maybe on Amazon or something.
Yep.
So he, you know, that is I really like his work there. I really like Dan's old work. So, you know. So what happened here, right? What happened here, Rick? So that's what we're all trying to figure out. What the hell happened here? I'm sitting around, you know, I throw down a decent amount of money. I've said what the amount of money was before on streams with Greg and Dan, and you know, they send me some actually. I don't know if you can see this.
Reaching into the abyss. I love it.
Reaching into my bag of tricks. This is the executioner mask from the trailer, because when you crowdfund back when we crowdfunded it, they hooked us up with a bunch of stuff. I have this and a couple other things. I had the poster framed, and they sent me like a big those ammo belts from like the machine guns from the trailer. They said I got all that stuff in the stash, Rick. Well, when we do the deep dive.
I didn't know you had the mask.
Oh yeah, I mean that's not I don't know, that's not the exact one from the trailer.
But, yeah, I get
a bunch of copies. So yeah, I got a lot of stuff. So idiots, I'm talking to you, the people who like to troll on YouTube and Facebook, when you try to tell me how the project went and how the trailer went and how the feature film crowdfunding was going. First of all, you guys don't even know what crowdfunding is because you're idiots. Second of all, you didn't pop up till 5 years later, so don't try to tell me how David was or how the project was going, because you guys don't know. You tried to say that I said I was involved with the crowdfunding of the trailer. Let me get close for this, Rick. You are a fucking idiot, because they didn't crowdfund the trailer. They crowdfunded the feature film. I don't even know how you could get that confused. It's pretty simple. So let's get back to the case. Let's get back to there's some idiots out there, Rick. We got to handle them properly. So let's get back to the case. So I'm sitting around waiting. What's up with this feature film, right? There's a lot of back and forth to where David was at with the Boglio group and the MEG, how they were getting, you know, what was the deal going to be, right? And essentially, I think what they ultimately landed on, a la Greg and Dan's work, was when he brought them the script, it was so long, they were looking at chopping it into a series, which would have been much more, you know, granted, this was 2012 when they crowdfunded. So I think what they were going for back then was like a solo feature film, because that was more the thing. As time went on, Netflix, Apple, Prime, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, and the other million streaming things. The popular thing now is series. So it would have made sense to split Gray State into like 10 episodes or something like that. If you go back to my interview with David, which you can link if you want, Rick.
I will do, for sure.
You'll hear him talk about Gray State, a Gray State sequel, graphic novels, video games. In other words, the Gray State universe. So you would have had that intellectual property, you know, just like everything else has a freaking, you know, Star Wars, name it, you know, Game of Thrones, everything has a universe now, right? The MCU, the Marvel universe, that's like the big example. But
It's
we could
amazing
have
how
had
David was thinking about that, though. Like, I found that really amazing when I listened.
thinking
Like,
about the future.
yeah, like he was
Yeah.
really planning on taking Gray State.
Hmm.
Like, he just didn't want to do this movie. He had, like you said, he
Right.
had he wanted a lot planned around this
Right.
whole thing, and I just think that's really, really fascinating that he was thinking that far ahead. It wasn't just thinking he was planning things, and he was gonna, expand on it. Really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been brought up a lot too. It's like doesn't really seem like a guy who would kill himself and his family. So I don't know. I mean, just before we get to the murder scene, let's just back up this thing that had undiagnosed PSTD and he was depressed and he was drinking absinthe and smoking cannabis. I
heard
know
that one before.
I know Rick is a cannabis enthusiast, as am
Yep.
I. We could do a whole episode on that sometime if you want, because I do work with some activists down here in Southern California. And let me tell you something, Rick. I've drank absinthe many, many times. Never had a suicidal thought in my life. I use cannabis quite often. I've used them both at the same time. Never had a suicidal thought in my life. I have tried the magic mushrooms fungi. Never had a suicidal thought in my life. Now, granted, I didn't serve in the military, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on PTSD,
Yep.
PTSD and issues that veterans deal with, because I don't know. Granted, both of my grandfathers were veterans of Marine and Navy, but so I don't know. That's not really my lane. I'm not a psychiatrist, but as far as all of those theories, and then Apple Valley Police wants to go and say, well, he was working in this dark conspiracy content and it pushed him over the edge. So it's like, then you have the Gray State documentary, which is a complete piece of crap. Pretty much no resolution or thesis in that film whatsoever. It's just basically a hit piece on David to make him look bad. You know what I mean? So that further muddies the water and is a piece of crap and is totally stupid. So I mean, it's a very strange crime scene.
For sure, yeah.
It's super depressing that they say that the issue was money problems and there was that check on the front doorstep.
Yeah, yeah.
David's dad. Like, I really wish somebody would have opened that front door, have seen that, because if the whole thing was money problems, I think that at least would have prevented that from happening that Christmas. Whether it was going to happen regardless or not. There's one more thing I want to point out before we get to the crime scene.
Okay, yep.
They say that David was performing a ritual, and at the time, the story was he created a playlist called Ascension.
Yep.
While he played that music for him to kill his family and himself to.
Yep.
Ascension, and then later on, our boy Greg proves that was actually David's Ascent, which was a USB attachment to the computer. So if you ask me, that's quite a fucking leap from he created an Ascension playlist to kill himself and his family to oh wait, it was just a USB attachment called Ascent. Oops. That one was a little bit of a mistake, so I wasn't really pleased about that. Of course, you have the back door being ajar.
Yeah, that one always bothered me. There's a couple pieces of this case that really make me wonder, and that's what keeps me kind of wondering, because it's just strange.
So we will keep it right, so it's less than an inch or less than a quarter inch open.
Yeah, not very much.
Okay, whatever.
Yep.
It's Minnesota in the winter though, still odd. And then the missing shell in the ceiling.
That's a big one for me.
Which they say that they couldn't see because of the Christmas tree, which I personally found idiotic. So that's where we're at. We have this quite strange crime scene here.
The bullet in the floor is another one, which I found weird, because a lot of them say that he was shooting it probably at the dog, and then he missed the dog, and then I'm like, okay, if he missed the dog, why would he just not go shoot it?
Okay, we can't have it both ways. They say he's a military combat veteran he's basically the military advisor on the Gray State trailer and project. He's the one showing everybody else, like, you know what a military advisor does on set, Rick. They basically make sure people are holding weapons authentically and making sure everything is
the movement's correct,
authentic from a military perspective. But then he is so out of his mind off absinthe and marijuana, probably neither one would even make me miss my target at the shooting range, that he can't shoot his own dog in the house. We can't have it both ways. He can't be a military firearms expert. He's a alt-right, right-wing nutcase, but he can't shoot his own dog with, like, what was it, a 45? Like come on, bro. Like, what are we talking about here? Is this the same? Is this the same murder scene? Is this what we're talking about? He's an elite firearms veteran expert, but he can't shoot his own dog from like 6 feet away. Like, what?
Yep.
So that makes zero sense in my opinion. But let's back up a little bit, right? Let's go with the police report narrative, right? Because law enforcement are such experts, they never get it wrong, right? They never get it wrong, Rick. They always knock it out of the park, especially a small town police force like this. So let's say that it happens exactly what the crime scene looks like, right? He shoots his wife and his daughter and then kills himself, and apparently shot at the dog but missed. Okay, it's weird, but the whole story's weird, so we're just going to roll with it.
Yeah, let's roll with it.
Well, the stuff that Dan Hennon dug up about the Gray State goons, as Greg calls them, it's absolutely ridiculous. These guys are, dude. I wish Dan's channel didn't get wiped. I think Greg may have re-uploaded the videos on the Gray Stage channel, if I'm not mistaken. The curious case of Eric Sayward and the other. They basically break down each one of these guys. I mean, how about this creepy weirdo at the Ron Paul Freedom Fest when they go up to David the first time and they go, hey, do you have your wife and your daughter with you? Can we see your wife and daughter? And David, like, noticeably steps to the side.
Yep.
No, thanks, man. I'm all good on that. Like, bro.
That was weird, actually.
You say that to me. FYI, guys, anybody who has a problem with me, I'm going to be at CooperCon in Vancouver before Thanksgiving next month at the DB Cooper convention. You guys say that to me at one of these festivals, I'm smashing your cameraman's camera on your face. You're not getting anywhere near anybody in my family. That was weird as shit. If you said that to me, I would have knocked you out on camera. I don't give a fuck. So that was a creepy, weird fucking thing to say, for one. David was noticeably uncomfortable with it on camera, for two. And then you dig up all this shit that Dan dug up on these weirdos that don't have incomes, they don't have jobs. They're all constantly pestering David in the emails of like, hey, when are we doing Gray State? Hey, can I get some more of your Gray State money? So is it really a mystery why David cut these people off? Because he wrote and directed the entire project himself, to the point, there's all the Danny August Mason bullshit. Like we'd probably have to do a full episode on
yeah.
Cover everything, but he got weird fast. Like Danny, I would love to talk to you because I got a lot of questions for you, but doesn't seem like you're talking to anybody since the last time you were on camera. So, then Dan digs up all these stuff on these guys, and it's like everything about them is all BS. They're posting fake Facebook posts. This one dude posted, I think it was Eric, posted his daughter, and it was like an old picture, and it was like an alibi for him to say that he was with his family during that Christmas, but he really wasn't. You know what I mean? It's like he dug up some shit on these guys, and then you have them talking about they're in the house after the fact, after the crime, but before police, and supposedly, I think, was it Sayward or one of those guys supposedly had the picture of a hand on his cell phone that he was going around showing people. So let's just say just for sake of the other group, because you guys are so, dedicated to your police reports, let's just say that it happened how the police reports say it happened. Well, then you have these other guys, Chris Klein and all these other guys, the Gray State goons, coming in the house and going around the house looking for something, supposedly having a picture of a hand on their phone. And so what the hell is the deal with all that stuff? You people don't have a problem with that? Even if David is the would-be murderer, right? Mm-hmm. But what about all these weirdos going in the house afterwards and taking pictures and looking for stuff, probably going through the hard drives and taking Lord knows what else? And then Klein, they spell Klein's name wrong in the police reports, and then they give supposedly, that part, Rick, where the car was seen outside of the house, after the fact, and then they go and they lie to the police about when they were there and why they were there. Yep. So at the bare minimum, if it happened the way it happened, as the police reports tell it, we should have a lot of questions about what these people were doing in the house after the fact. Like, obviously they were trying to steal either the footage or the intellectual property or the script. Seems like they were trying to steal something. And I'll just end with this. Later on, Danny August Mason, he tries to go back to the MEG group and he tries to re-pitch Gray State as Gray State Universe. They set up a new Facebook page called Gray State Universe. This is after David's passing, and he essentially tries to hijack the project. And they found Gray State Universe LLC, and they try to re-engage the MEG group, who at that point had nothing to want to do with the project. So I'm not gonna, me personally, like, I don't know. I think there's something going on. You know, I haven't deep dived the police reports. Like, I was thinking about coming back to the Crowley case full time, and so I could cover it the way that Greg and Dan and Sophia and Catherine cover it. And I was even thinking about maybe doing a Gray State interview series on my channel. But it kind of turned me off once all those weirdos were trolling, and they started trolling me, tried to label my name. They tried to, you know, it's funny, like, I tried to, this is hilarious. I got it. So a certain idiot that we all know of who go unnamed, who really spearheads that movement of trolling Greg and Dan. I was trying to tell them how, listen, I've worked on more films than David Crowley worked on. I have done short films. I was in Stronger, the Jake Gyllenhaal film, which is directed by David and Gordon Green. I was on that set. That's a you know, major production at the time when I was living in Boston. So quite frankly, my IMDb resume is longer than David Crowley's was. So I think I have a much better idea of filmmaking than any of you idiots on Facebook do. But I told them about how I crowdfunded this Rob Zombie movie. It's called 31. I don't know if you've seen that, Rick, but I think you're into horror.
Oh God, I love horror. Are you kidding me? Of course I've seen that.
So check out 31. It's kind of like an indie crowdfunded movie that Rob Zombie did. I was telling them how I crowdfunded that, like using the example, like, yeah, I've crowdfunded Danny Trejo projects. I've crowdfunded Dolph Lundgren projects. I've crowdfunded Rob Zombie. Like, so I'm making the argument that this is no different of how I crowdfunded Gray State, of how I crowdfunded all this other stuff that actually did get made because the director of these other movies didn't die in the pre-production process, like the Crowley case. And they're going, oh, and they looked up my name and they go, oh, Ross is in the special thanks. And then they looked up like what the general definition of special thanks was, and they were like, it's when someone offers like a location or they lend something to the film, like for the set, and they were like, yeah, Ross probably brought the donuts. Ha ha ha, hilarious joke. No, I told you I crowdfunded it, you fucking moron. That's why my name is at the end of 31 in the credits, just like my name is in the bunch of other movies that I fucking crowdfunded. It's no different than Gray State or any other movie I crowdfunded. Why you people are not able to understand that when you think you're such these analytical fucking police report reading geniuses makes zero sense whatsoever. I literally don't understand it. Much like how you guys said that I said I crowdfunded the concept trailer, which I didn't even know about because it was an indie production in Minnesota. I didn't even see it until it came out, and they were running the crowdfunding campaign. And I'm gonna send Rick all these screenshots because we're gonna prove all this shit and finally shut the door on these idiots once and for all. Because you guys are so fucking stupid. But this is my favorite part. The person who will go unnamed, she goes, oh, Rob Zombie? She goes, if he's so famous, why haven't I heard of him? Holy shit, your fucking Facebook ego is ridiculous. How do you get that kind of ego with 200 people in a shitty group that no one pays attention to, and you just said a famous rock star who's also a famous movie director isn't that famous because you haven't heard of him? I don't know. Maybe because you're a 90-year-old lady that doesn't listen to metal or apparently watch freaking mainstream big studio budget movies, because when we talk about House of a Thousand Corpses, we're talking about Lionsgate and Universal Studios. I'm pretty sure those are bigger than your shitty little Facebook group, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Rick?
Oh, so, yeah.
That was my favorite one. Who's Rob Zombie? I don't know. He's famous from being in White Zombie. He's famous for being Rob Zombie, and he's famous for directing movies like House of a Thousand Corpses and Halloween. you're a fucking idiot.
Yep.
Go ahead, Rick.
Oh no, I agree. Like that, it's true. Like everybody knows who most people know who Rob Zombie is or have heard the name.
Stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. Like, holy shit. Like, you really think because you have two idiots listening to you on Facebook that it makes you more famous or have more clout than Rob Zombie? Like, oh, why haven't I heard of him? Like, listen, there's probably a lot of shitty bluegrass bands that I haven't heard of because I don't listen to that, but they're definitely more famous than you. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like, what? Like, with these people, man, like, you just can't win. So that was a funny one. But yeah, just for anybody who doesn't understand how the crowd, even though I've explained this on multiple podcasts with Greg, who doesn't understand how the crowdfunding process works, I'm happy to explain it to you. You know what I mean? And
well, you did a great job. I mean, I mean, how much more can you explain it than that?
You can't.
You
but
can't.
Again, they're gonna spin it in some way that Ross brought the donuts. I wasn't even on the 31 set, so what are you talking about? Like, I think they filmed in L.A. I don't even know where they filmed that movie. You know what I mean? Like,
well, hey man, you've crowdfunded a lot of movies, that's for sure. And
yeah, I'm on IMDb. You guys can find it.
Definitely check it out, guys. Like, that's what I keep saying. Check it out. And so yeah, like I definitely like we've kind of talked a little bit about the case. So I'm more what I'm curious about too, Ross, is when you talk to David, and I'm going to post a link to the interview that you did with him so people can see that. And what was you said you kind of talked to him off the air and stuff like that. What was your take of him when you talked to him? Did he sound crazy? He
didn't sound crazy. I mean, I guess the whole argument people would say with a psychopath is like, it's like the movie American Psycho, and they're so good at keeping their composure, you could never detect they have these secret insanity going on inside their brain. From what I understood, I talked to him the first time with my boy, my co-host of the old show, Gaz, our old radio show, Planet X Radio, and he sounded, at that point he was deep in the crowdfunding campaign. He was, they were just he was working through the script. From what I understood, they were doing a lot of, things to try to make it authentic. Like, he was looking to try to get some like retired Navy SEALs to read it just for like military authenticity. So it sounded like a serious, pre-apocalyptic, military, sci-fi or action thriller, whatever you want to call it. It sounded like a serious project to me, which is what got my attention and why I wanted to be involved in it. I mean, what's kind of funny is is Greg and I have kind of like crossed opinions on that, because I was a fan of the trailer and I was super into the project. And then when that first copy of the script leaked, I was like, okay, this is like not really what I was going for. You know what I mean? Because it didn't really incorporate a lot of the elements that were shown in the concept trailer. So I thought it was a pretty amateur level script, to be honest. Greg actually liked the script a lot, and he didn't like the concept trailer at the time. Like, I know he's kind of come full circle on it now. But at the time, like, he thought it was more like fear porn, like kind of propaganda, which I can see that angle, of course.
Me too. Me too.
So it's kind of funny. Like, I was really into the trailer, and then the script, I was like, it's not really for me, which is why me and Greg have those deep dive analyses on the script. For anyone who doesn't know my angle on the case, I'm really more into the Gray State project than I am in the actual Crowley family, the murder case, because it's just too fucking depressing. I'm more on the filmmaking artwork side aspect.
Right, that makes sense.
I got no problem getting into both. Because you can obviously see my true crime background now. I really like Greg and Dan's work, and Sophia and Catherine. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So as far as, he seemed deep into the production of the project. Now, a lot of those people who were involved in the concept trailer were dropping off at that time because they brought nothing to the table. You know what I mean? David was going to pitch this to a major studio or a major streaming network, and they were going to hire all professional actors, and probably, I don't even think he was, because he directed the concept trailer, I don't even think he was going to sit in the director's seat. There was talk of major Hollywood directors taking the helm of that. As well as producers. So he probably would have been more like a producer, writer, consultant in the end, had everything come full circle. But he seemed, everybody always described him as ambitious, dedicated. Now, I know I know have you seen A Gray State back when it was on Netflix?
Yeah. That's a the mockumentary, I call it. That was so one-sided. I've had
trash.
a pop.
So they basically pitch him as this like charlatan, who's going in there and trying to dupe the producers, and it's like, the way I look at it is, when you are a indie filmmaker and you have the chance to get in front of those people, you pretty much have to do whatever you can to get your thing. Like, this isn't Martin Scorsese when he made Taxi Driver, or Sylvester Stallone when he made Rocky 1, and everybody like assumed Rocky 1 was going to be a failure and all that. He didn't even know if it would work himself. So when you're basically on that other side and you get in front of those people that are going to get you your funding, you essentially have to do whatever you can. So I didn't really look at it as like, oh, David's a genius con man and he's gonna totally dupe the conspiracy community, which is what they all say. You know what I mean? He took all of our money and ran, which, honestly, to be real with you guys, 60 G's ain't gonna get you very, very far. Like, I could spend that real quick if I wanted to. I got expensive tastes, so
it's true though.
They got 60,000 from the crowdfunding of the concept trailer, and what that's considered is that's startup money. That's money for David to maybe finish writing the script and maybe some travel back and forth to California or whatever producers he's going to talk to. So I mean, it's quite funny when they say it's this big $60,000 conspiracy. Like, I bet you 60,000, dude. Like, people like, who Bruce Campbell is, Rick. You're a horror fan. Okay. Guys like Bruce Campbell get paid like $30K a day on set. So
exactly.
You're talking about 60 grand is like 2 days of Bruce's salary on a short film. You know what I mean? So it's like, in filmmaking, 60 G's is nothing. One guy, I talked about this with Greg before. One guy tried to say like, oh my God, like, dude, like $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, like, go look up what John Wick, John Wick became this super action trilogy, massive franchise.
Great movie.
Lawrence Fishburne, and they're working on John Wick Chapter 4 now.
I love that movie.
John Wick 1 was essentially an indie budget that they almost didn't finish making. So Keanu Reeves put up his personal money to finish the project. We're talking about John Wick. It's freaking huge now. When they made it, they didn't even know if it was going to get finished. You know what I mean?
It's true.
When you start throwing around millions, trust me, bro, it goes fast in filmmaking.
I can only imagine the budget. Like, I mean, like, I think like, wow. And then I've heard people say that David was like doing this movie just because he wanted to soak the conspiracy crowd kind of thing. And I get upset with that because they're trying to paint David as like, my opinion is, of course he's going to be trying to make a movie that he can make money on. I mean, like, what's the point? Otherwise, who are we trying to fool here? Like, I mean, he's got a family. He's trying to become he wants to get big in Hollywood. Yeah, he's going to make money. He's going to want to make money. That's not a bad thing.
Rick, have you ever met a carpenter before?
Yeah, of course.
Do you know a lot of carpenters that build houses for free? Like, they go buy all the wood and the concrete and they just sit there. They're like, here, you can have it. Like,
not a one.
Why do all that work? For like, that's I don't know. I don't know where that came from. If it was the conspiracy community or if it was the other idiots, but like, well, come on, bro. Like none of these directors, Francis Ford Coppola, or like he's another one, right? Like, Coppola is this epic genius director of Apocalypse Now and the Godfather trilogy. This movie that he's been working on for like 30 years called Metropolis, he's putting up all the money himself. Now, granted, you're not going to be able to do this unless you're a Coppola or a Spielberg or a Lucas, but he's putting up all the money for his next movie himself because none of the studios would pick it up. And, obviously he owns a winery. Dude is super rich. He's a legend. He's like a god tier director. So he's doing it himself. So the only time you're ever going to like see that happen is when you're like a legendary director that's at the end of your career and it's a passion project. And you're like, all right, I just want to make this for me. That's the only time you're ever going to see this. Why should David show up every day on set for the project that he's been, his baby that he created, and he's just going to hand it off to these other people, and he's like, okay, I'll just be a consultant, and I'll stand around while you guys film my project, and you don't have to pay me anything. That doesn't make any sense,
Exactly. That's the way I look at it, too. It's not a bad thing to want to make money. Like that, like, I mean, that, and he did, so...
Right.
we're definitely gonna have to. Thank you for your. I'm really happy, Ross. Thank you for telling us that about what your thoughts on it. And I definitely want to do a deep dive with you.
Yeah.
Someday we will really set aside time to do a deep dive on the Crowley case. And that, so, but I mean, for the sake of time, I don't want to dive in this one. We kind of touched really on it. I love what you were saying. I like that you got to speak with David and interview him, which is, you know, I think that's great. You're one of the only people I've talked to that actually did talk to David for any amount of time or interview him. So that's cool. I'm glad I got.
Final note on it. We emailed back and forth quite a few times. My old rap group had a song called Order Rap KO. I don't know if you ever heard hip hop before, Rick.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The artist Cannabis, who had a gold record, he was on Howard Stern's show. He was friends with Mike Tyson. Myself and my partner in rhyme, Mac, we have a track called Order Rap KO featuring Cannabis. And I actually sent that to David. And like, literally on our interview, David was like, I don't personally listen to hip hop. He's like, but I respect hip hop.
Yep.
And that's all I want to hear from people. If you're not from the hip hop community, like I used to be, like we're not looking to have every one of you guys being a hip hop fan if you don't understand it. But I really like David's opinion on that. Like, so I sent him that track and he was like, hey, do you mind if I use this for Gray State promos and shit? And I was like, please do.
That's awesome. I'm the same. I'm the same way with heavy metal too. I always tell people you don't gotta love heavy metal, but at least respect it. I mean, like a lot of these guys get a bad rap and that they're not talented and stuff, and I'm like, come on, man. Like you may not like the music.
I'm hardcore hip hop, heavy metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Music lover.
And final note on Crowley. Why would he waste all his time going to all those Ron Paul festivals and speaking about, you know, anti-establishment dissent? He's writing all these speeches and he's putting himself in the public. Like, it seems like a huge waste of time for a guy who's going to write a creative script and then later on try to pitch it for a feature film. You know, granted, him and Danny were on at the Alex Jones. I'm sure you've seen that footage.
Saw that, yep.
And so it's like, why? Why do this massive campaign? Why do the crowdfunding? Why even make the concept trailer? Like, unless you're one of the CIA false flag PSYOP people, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. All I'm seeing is a dude that's putting in a lot of work on a script and wasting a lot of time. And final note on filmmaking, people who don't understand the script writing process. Have you seen the movie Point Break, Rick?
I love Point Break.
Okay, so the dude.
Well, it depends what version, because there's the
original.
Okay, original. I love the original.
The dude that wrote Point Break, that dude was waiting tables in California for years, and they were like, "Hey, dude," they were like, "Your script got picked up," and he's like, "Nice." He was like, "I'm gonna get my foot in the door," like a Gray State situation, right?
Yep.
And then they were like, "Oh shit, sorry man, we lost the studio, we lost the producer." So that dude got stuck waiting tables for 2 or 3 years after writing Point Break. Point Break is freaking huge.
Yep.
It's Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. You know what I mean? So people who just don't understand the script development process, they'll give you these stupid crackpot theories on the crowdfunding and the Gray State script. And what I see when people do that shit is you're an idiot. Because of the Gray State concept being conspiracy related, you know, they want to say all these weird, fruity things about it, where guess what? It still had the same script development process as every other film you've ever seen. So, you know, I would say it's akin to that. Like, I bet you didn't picture the Point Break writer waiting tables for 3 extra years before his film got picked up, but he was stuck being a waiter because his script hadn't got fully processed yet. So, like, there's a lot of stories like that in Hollywood, dude. There's a lot of stories like that.
Oh, I can imagine. And it's crazy because I can't even imagine what it takes to write a script.
Right.
Like
takes years, bro.
Oh, geez, I don't even know where to start.
I've written one, bro, and it sucked. And I on my writing app, I've had like 3-4 hour writing sessions where I was like, man, I'm pretty confident about those scenes. That's pretty good. Forgot to save it. Boop! Wiped the entire thing and be like, okay, there's 4 or 5 hours of work gone. That's one small example.
Like I couldn't even imagine writing a script, and I've read David's scripts. I've read all of them.
I've read them both. I like that 2013 version better with the Stephen King shit, as Greg says.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the trailer, the concept trailer. I love that. That's what I really like that. So because that's kind of like what I like looking into. So I was really hooked when I saw that, and so we're definitely gonna have to do a deep dive, Ross, on this and show some evidence in that. But to wrap this up, because I know you got only a limited amount of time, I want to also touch on the Cooper case.
Yep.
If there's I want to let people know a little bit about the case. If you haven't heard about it, I'm sure people have.
Yeah.
And is there any updates on that case? Where's your research taking you? Just give us the goods.
Yeah, as far as like DB Cooper, like I'm pretty new to this one. I'm kind of being ushered in by guys like my boy Nikki B, Drew Beeson. I had Eric on recently. I've always had an interest in this since I've heard about it. This kind of goes tier and tier with Zodiac, because Zodiac's like 68 to 69 and Cooper is 71. Just to give a brief synopsis, if you guys haven't seen Unsolved Mysteries or The In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy back in the day, Thanksgiving Eve, 1971, a dude goes from Portland to Seattle. He buys a ticket. He tells them his name is Dan Cooper. We need to hammer that home, because the DB Cooper thing is a mess up. When it hits the news wire, the media reports DB Cooper, and then forever of it, rest of eternity, he's known as DB Cooper, but the name he actually gave was Dan Cooper.
Okay. So
there really is no DB Cooper. That's just a messed up thing, and now it's called DB Cooper, which some people think sounds cooler.
Okay.
So he buys a ticket for $20. I'm just going to do a brief synopsis for your audience that may not know.
Okay.
He gets on the plane. It's called Flight 305. The case is called Norjack. And he sits down. He passes a note to a flight attendant. It was very common for men to just disrespect flight attendants back then, hand them phone numbers. Hey, baby, give me a call, that type of thing. So it's so common that she doesn't even think twice about the note. She just puts it in her pocket. He makes it noticeable that he's looking at her. He's like, ma'am, you better have a look at that note. I have a bomb. So
wow.
She's like, oh shit. So she looks at the letter, sees what he says, like, this is a hijacking, I have a bomb, blah, blah, blah. He's like, come sit next to me. He tries to get on last. I think one person may have got on the flight after him. He sits in the back. Didn't have his sunglasses on at first, but later puts on his sunglasses for the entire flight, semi-disguised. Cool guy wearing a suit, mid-40s. So there's a couple composite sketches of him out there. The way the whole thing goes down is, he essentially shows her this bomb. She radios up to the cockpit. All these different things ensue. Later on, they refuel. He allows everybody to get on. He requests meals for the flight crew that will be stuck on the jet with him. So it doesn't really sound like an asshole guy. The flight attendant sitting next to him said he was polite. He wasn't described as like a bomb wielding maniac waving guns in people's plane. Mm-hmm. Everybody get down, or I'm gonna blow the plane. Went about it very like articulately and intelligent. Didn't really make any mistakes. Got his note back. He eventually, this is the only unsolved skyjacking in U.S. history. Every other one is solved. So
wow.
Later on, he gets the $200K ransom money. He skydives. They give him 4 parachutes. He requests circulated American currency in a knapsack. Well, they give him regular bank bags that have an open top. He gets pretty pissed off. What the fuck is this? I didn't ask for an open bank bag. I asked for a fucking knapsack. The guy's about to go he's about to go jump in a drizzle on Thanksgiving Eve in the Northwest in a rainy, semi-storm at nighttime. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
He takes the bomb with it. A lot of people think the bomb is fake. The only thing he leaves behind is his tie. And then they do supposedly have a hair that was on the chair. And there's a lot of other, weird evidence things that me and Eric cover in our interview. If you want to link that,
I will link it. Yep.
So he jumps off fairly close to what they think is the Portland area. Is never seen again. Several years later, I think $5,000 or $6,000 of the ransom money is dug up on what's called Tina Bar. I'm actually going to Tina Bar soon with Eric, so hopefully I can vlog or get you guys some pictures and footage.
That would be awesome.
Private property, so don't go up there and be an idiot, guys. You can't go up there unless you know someone. Sorry. So I'm going to be up there with Eric. It's going to be epic. And where we're at on this is a few years ago, the FBI, there's this crew called the Citizen Sleuths, which was set up by Special Agent Larry Carr. I don't know if you've seen him, Rick. He's in some of the DB Cooper documentaries.
Yes, yep.
He took over the case, I think in the 90s or something, much later on. But he was like on point with it. He's the one who kind of went public with starting to leak some things to the DB Cooper community online, documents and information and such, just to try to see if, like, at this point, this cold case has been dead in the water. maybe the private citizens can help get something going.
Yeah,
Like you were saying before about Zodiac, does anyone know someone? Did anyone talk? Type of thing. Well, the FBI lets Tom K analyze the tie, and what they find is titanium, antimony alloy, and all these other what's called rare earth metals, microscopic particles, which essentially says that D.B. Cooper possibly worked in one of these aerospace facilities in the aerospace industry, or one of these, at the time, titanium was not like popular at the time like it is now. It was, so a lot of people were thinking Boeing or maybe one of these major companies like that. You know what I mean? Something like along that lines, the aerospace industry.
Okay.
So they analyze that. They come up with those. I think the D.B. Cooper case is going to get solved soon, guys. There's some really solid suspects. There's going to be a lot of news coming up soon. That's why I keep plugging CooperCon2022.com. If you're into the D.B. Cooper case or true crime, it's up in Vancouver, Washington. It's going to be epic. They got CooperCon T-shirts. Head over to Eric's website, ericulis.com or CooperCon2022.com. Get some tickets. It's going to be sick. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a couple Zodiac heads there. Probably the next episode on my channel is going to be with Nicky B. He's kind of one of the kind of dark horses of the Cooper community, but he really knows his shit. He's one of the top guys. So that's going to be epic. So where do these rare earth metal particles lead us to? This company called Rem Crew, which is Remington Crucible. I don't know I think you're a firearm enthusiast, Rick.
Yep,
so if you've heard of the company Remington.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Company. So at the time it was Remington Crucible. I think later on it's bought and sold a few times. Remington splits off. It becomes Crucible Steel. They essentially narrow it down to they had the patent for this titanium antimony alloy.
Oh,
so
interesting.
It would seem, unless D.B. Cooper pulled this tie out of his ass at a thrift shop, if it was indeed his tie, it was like a J.C. Penney tie that I think retailed for like $2 or $3 at the time, so it wasn't anything special. It would lead us to this company, Rem Crew. So it's heating up, guys. If you're into this D.B. Cooper case, definitely check out Eric's videos on YouTube. He has some really cool stuff about the drop zone and the flight path being off and all that stuff. Essentially, what you have in D.B. Cooper is these two narratives. You have the FBI narrative, which goes one way, as me and Rick were saying, law enforcement doesn't get it right. And then you have this other story that's starting to come out now, which has a lot of inconsistencies in it. And the D.B. Cooper case is crazy, man. It drives a lot of people nuts just because now you have the particles on the tie, the money being found at Tina Bar. Nobody really knows what the deal with the money at Tina Bar is because there's no explanation for it showing up there. You know, there's the dredging theory that it got stuck on the propeller of one of the dredging boats.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Then it got flipped on it, but a lot of people don't buy the natural thing. Like, you know, even the way the Columbia River dumps out into the ocean, like, yeah, sure, D.B. Cooper could have got stuck on the propeller of the plane, fell in the river, and got launched out into the Pacific Ocean, but how does that explain the money getting there, right? So, you know what I mean? There's just, it's another thing kind of like Zodiac, where you just have like all this random information coming at you, and it's like, where the hell does this one go? But I'm telling you right now, much like Zodiac, I do have some information on the inside information on the D.B. Cooper case. I can't say what it is. All I can say is I think it will be coming out soon. It's not my information. That's why I can't just, you know what I mean? I can't just go and do that. But there's some really solid suspects coming up. All of the suspects are not very good. I mentioned earlier the case breakers suspect, Rackstraw. Of course, there's Kenny Christensen. I really like Drew Beeson's suspect, Ted Braden. If you ever get Drew on again, Rick, you guys should do his D.B. Cooper book, the Ted Braden.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'd love to.
Paratrooper of Fortune. That one's epic. Really like his work there. So, yeah, D.B. Cooper's a tough one because, you know, I guarantee you that guy never talked, you know. And a lot of people don't even think he spent the money because they have all of the serial numbers of the bills. And none of those 20s, you know, me and Eric were talking about this on my show. None of those 20s ever showed up in circulation. So, like,
I was going to ask you that.
Or yeah, they got nothing.
I was going to ask you that if they ever. I think that's immediately where I thought was, has any of the money that it would have been, if he spent it, it would be in circulation somewhere.
Yeah, nothing that's ever been reported in
Wow.
circulation. Of course, you have Tina Bar, but that's it. And I don't know if you've seen. Eric has one of the Tina Bar bills. He showed it on my show.
Yes, that was interesting.
Super degraded, dude. There's like nothing left of it. It's like, you know what I mean. It's like from what was like a full bill. There's like, you know what I mean, like that much left of it after it was degraded, you know, in the sand, buried underground on the river for all that time. So. Yeah, D.B. Cooper's crazy, man. I love that case, and you know it's a little bit more lighthearted than some of these other cases because no one died. So
that's so true. Well, thank you so much, Ross, for the updates, man. Awesome, man. Like before I let you go, I just want to ask you to let everybody know any information they want, where they can find your channel, anywhere, any information. I want to give you the floor for the next minute or two. Promote your stuff. Let everybody know where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the main place to find all my true crime work is YouTube. That's youtube.com/Planet X Film. My channel is called Planet X Filmworks. We do the Zodiac Files series, which part 3 is out now. Part 4, the Gavita Beach murders, is coming soon. I'm almost done pre-production on that, so we're going to go up. That's going to be our farthest drive. It's about 5-6 hours away from where I am now, so I really hope you guys support that one. I remember when I was talking about that one last time about Santa Barbara in '63. I know a lot. I've uncovered a lot of stuff on that one now, and when I talked to you, I was just going off the cuff. Like now, I've actually done my deep dive of the article, so I have some amazing stuff on that. Zodiac Files episode 4 coming soon. We also have the Zodiac Files interview series. I have the Sons of Sam cult interview series, which I was just talking to Rick earlier about Berkowitz.
We got to do a dive on that too.
Yeah, no, we should definitely do that. And I want to get you into Manson too, because this chaos shit is crazy. Have that, and then I've got the D.B. Cooper, the Cooper Chronicles. I'm going to be getting Nikki B on for that in a couple weeks. Hopefully have some big Cooper World guests that'll be coming on my show for that. So all of those series are on my YouTube. You'll find me on Twitter at RossJCPXF, and then planetxmedia.blogspot.com. That's where we post, like, it's just basically a feed where we post everything. So yeah, best bet, get at me on Twitter, but yeah, tap in on YouTube if you guys are on here with Crip Rick, and make sure to subscribe to his channel as well.
Thank you.
And that's how you find me. Whatever you want to do next time, bro. If you want to do a DB Cooper deep dive, we can do Crowley, we can do whatever, you know.
I would love to do that. I would definitely talk about the Son of Sam, because that's one I've been looking at too, and I haven't actually interviewed anybody on that case yet. So that is definitely something I'm looking forward to doing. So I will get you on for a deep dive, my friend.
I'm going to get you on Son of Sam, and I'm going to get you on Manson. So your homework assignments is you got to read Chaos, and then if you want to do Son of Sam, you got to read The Ultimate Evil.
Okay, I will do. I'll take you up on that offer, and as soon as I do, we will get you on to talk about it.
And the rest of you guys can check those out too.
All right. Thank you so much, Ross. If you want to wait in the background for a second.
Yes, sir.
Just let me close off the video here. I just got to say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll come back and chat to you offline. So thank you so much, though, Ross. You know you're always welcome back here. I really enjoy getting you on.
Absolutely.
So you're always welcome back. So just wait in the back there for 1 second. I just got to say bye to everybody, close up the video, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, my friend?
No problem, sir.
All right, I'll be right back, my friend. Well, there you go, guys. What an amazing interview. I was looking forward to this one for a couple weeks now, guys. And Ross, as I said, he is always welcome back to the show. He always brings amazing information. I was excited to get these updates because he's always diving in and getting amazing guests on his show, and they're always uncovering new things. And so I wanted to get him on just to give us all an update on that. So I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you check out the first interview I did with Ross. We really dive into these cases and get more in depth with them. So I just wanted to do this one to get kind of an update of what's going on and get his thoughts on the David Crowley case, because he was actually part of that and the crowdfunding, as he explained. So and spoke with David. So I wanted to actually get Ross on to speak about that. So thank you so much, guys. I appreciate all of you watching. It's great to be back doing a video interview again. So I'm glad to be doing that. Lots of great interviews coming up in the future. Got lots of stuff planned. If you like radio, don't forget, I always like to let you guys know that you can find me at Revolution Radio, which is at freedomslips.com. I got 2 shows there a week. Saturday evenings, I'm in Studio B from 6 till 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is the Crip Rick and Jonathan show. That's with my new co-host, Jonathan Wright. And then you can also find me on Mondays from 6 to 8 p.m. in Studio A. And that's just the normal show, Crip Rick, I've been thinking. So please, guys, check me out at Revolution Radio. If you like radio, I have amazing guests there too. So Thank you so much, guys. Have yourselves a great evening if you're watching this in the evening, or a great morning, whatever it would be. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care, guys.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.